How's it going, guys? I'm Al, and I've got a whole nother video for you right here today on YouTube. We're going to talk about my most owned players that I've drafted. I've done over 80 fantasy football drafts so far. I know, first step to recovery is admitting that you have a problem, and I may have a problem because I love fantasy football and I absolutely love drafting. So it is what it is. I'm going to go through and tell you some of the guys that I have about or over 30% exposure to across all of my drafts. Now, some of this is going to be affected by where you select in the drafts because in a snake draft format, some guys you're just never going to have a chance for if you don't reach for them, right? If you're at the one pick and you're not going to pick for 23 more picks before it comes back to you, and you think a guy is going to go, let's say it's the 6th round, you think he's going to go in the 7th round, and there's going to be 23 picks between your picks before it comes back to you at a turn, you might reach for somebody that's got an ADP of around behind where you're selecting just to make sure that you get your guy. I'm not against doing that. I prefer to value draft, but sometimes you got to get the guy that you want. There's not a lot of talent at the range that you're drafting at, and you feel really good about this dude, so you do what you got to do. If you like this video, and I think that you will, please click that like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and click that notifications bell so you can be sure that you are notified the next time and every time that I post videos right here on this YouTube channel. For the rest of the NFL season is going to be 3-4 videos pretty much every single week. So I appreciate the support so far. The growth has been tremendous. You guys have been outstanding, really positive in the comments section. Absolutely love the support, you guys. I cannot say enough to thank you guys for the support that you've given to this channel. So let's get right to the screen here. My highest owned player through all of my drafts so far, James Washington out of Oak State. You may not know who he is. I was drafting him as a 16, 17, 18th rounder. I could have him all day through July, through June. He was the guy that I was using to fill out my wide receiver core. In these 18-round drafts that I've been doing, I tend to draft 5 total quarterback tight ends, sometimes 3 quarterbacks, sometimes 3 tight ends, 5 running backs, and 8 wide receivers. That's my typical build through an 18-round draft. So in the 16, 17, or 18th round, I'm filling out my wide receiver core with my wide receiver 7 or my wide receiver 8. And that's where I was drafting James Washington. And his price has risen since then. I was buying him at that cost. Current ADP is about 187, being drafted as a wide receiver 72. So he's gone up, and that is rising. This is a player who's going to be on the field a lot, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the league in terms of running 3 wideouts. They're going to put Juju or Antonio Brown in the slot often. Which means that somebody's going to play on the other side of that formation. So you can't score fantasy points if you're holding your helmet on the sideline. James Washington clearly going to be wearing his helmet and on the field in a very potent offense with single coverage. This kid is one of the better players, or was one of the better players in college in terms of his contested catch rate. He can make plays. You saw it during one game during the preseason. I don't put much stock in preseason stats, but if you watch the catches that he made in traffic on 50-50 balls, he is a guy that Ben can trust around the goal line. And I think he's going to see his share of great games in terms of best ball purposes, where he's going to be a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver 3 on the week, maybe 3 or 4 times this season. And when you're getting that out of your wide receivers 6, 7, or 8, that's not too shabby. My second most owned guy, I have 58%, by the way, of James Washington. I was drafting him all the time in June or July. At 39%, my second most owned player, Zeus, Travis Kelce. He is one of the 3 tight ends that I have right at the top of the drafts, and I've been doing what I can to try and draft these guys as much as possible. Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, or Zach Ertz. I've been leaving the first 3 rounds with as much of these guys as I can possibly get my hands on, and 39% Travis Kelce kind of backs up that narrative that I've been telling you guys all offseason and all draft season. He is still a top 3 tight end. He's being drafted at about 28 overall. His ADP is 28. He's a tight end 2. And I'm going to explain why I'm buying these top 3 tight ends, because I just think there's a massive drop-off, especially in best ball, where you can go get the other guys, but there's question marks. Barring injury, because every player can get injured in the NFL. Like, I had a poll on Twitter yesterday where I said, would you rather get McCaffrey? Would you rather get Fournette? And people said, there were more than one that responded to that and said, well, I'm going to say Fournette because McCaffrey has more of a chance to get injured. They're NFL running backs. They all have a chance to get injured, and it's pretty much equal. Why would you say that one has more of a chance to get injured than the other, unless it's a recurring injury or something that has that recurring injury? Not getting all the way down that rabbit hole. Some injuries do tend to recur, right? There are other injuries that are freak injuries, contact injuries that do not reoccur. They're just bad luck, right? So understand the difference between recurring injuries that are going to, once you injure it, it's going to continually be injured the rest of your life, or you have more of a chance of re-injury, and other injuries where like you have a broken wrist and it's going to heal and then it's done. So I've been drafting a ton of Travis Kelce. He is my 1A tight end right with Rob Gronkowski. He's going at a much cheaper price. Gronkowski now going at around the turn, top of the second round, 13, 14, 15. He is pretty much not lasting past that in the drafts that I've done recently. Travis Kelce around at the end of the second round, top of the third round. So I've been drafting with either a late second round pick, if I happen to draft near the top of drafts and I have that coming back, or if there's people that I don't think are going to take him, I'm taking him at the top end of the third round. So that's where I'm getting him. That's my second most owned player. My third most owned player at 39% also is Cooper Kupp, Rams wide receiver. Now I'm on record by saying if I'm playing in season-long leagues and there's one where you've got transactions, I don't want to have to pick between the Rams wide receivers. But if I'm going to pick one, it's going to be Cooper Kupp, and here's why. I want red zone usage. I want touchdown upside, and Cooper Kupp is the one of the Rams receivers that gives me that. Taking a quick look at last season where he was third in the league, tied for third in the league in red zone targets in the NFL. He had 23 of them. As you can see here, this is NFLsavant.com. Free plug for them. I like what they do. It's just a stat site. They do targets, they do plays and stuff, but it's just a quick, very simple way to check targets and red zone targets and everything else. So looking at their site, this is last year's Rams. All these guys returned except Sammy Watkins, who turned into Brandon Cooks, who is not a big red zone target in his own right. Neither was Sammy Watkins. I kind of expect a similar usage to this. They didn't add any other red zone targets. People say, well, Robert Woods is the main guy. I don't care who the main guy is. You could say he was the main guy, but last year, Kupp led the team in targets. Now you're going into a second year where players typically make a little bit of a leap. Second year in the same offense. Players tend to do better that second year. Similar target share overall to Robert Woods, but massive difference in terms of his red zone looks. 26% of the team's red zone targets. I think that kind of stays similar. In an offense, it's going to be high powered, albeit the efficiency of Goff is probably not going to stay where it was last year. He was way too efficient. I've talked about this on previous videos. I expect that to come back down, but his overall attempts may go up, meaning that the total numbers may stay about the same. My next most owned player at 35%, Kenny Golladay, wide receiver from the Detroit Lions, going to play a lot in two wide receiver sets. Who cares? They run those about 16% of the time. But that definitely means he's going to be on the field when they're running three wide receiver sets. Golden Tate, the number one there. Marvin Jones did a great job, but I think Kenny Golladay, again, another player going into his second year that could take a leap here. We've talked about why before. Ryan Clark at the Summit at ESPN this year talked about that as well from a player's perspective and all the things you have to do from the end of your senior season all the way up until and through the combine, the draft, pro days, off-season OTAs, preseason, camp, everything else that you have to learn. It's all this stuff all at once. Now, you've had a year to get reps. You've had a year in the film room. You've had a year in the weight room. And then your second year, you have this time off before the season. You don't have all those things leading up to the draft from the end of January and bowl season all the way up to the combine in February, pro days through March, draft in April, all the media and everything else that you have to do as a rookie in the NFL. Now you get Golladay going into his second year, ready in this offense, a lot more healthy this year than he was in last year, and a big threat around the red zone. They lost Eric Ebron. I think that Golladay sees an uptick in terms of his red zone targets this season, as well as a threat downfield for the Detroit Lions, who throw the ball a ton. Coming in also at 35% for me, Jordan Wilkins, running back from the Indianapolis Colts. I've been drafting this dude in July and June as my running back 5. I said I like to get about 5 running backs. Typically in best ball, you play your top 2. There's also a flex position. So if this guy gets any, RB1 weeks, if he gets any RB2 weeks, and I mean overall, every running back on the week, he's in the top 24 of running backs, it's definitely possible considering the injuries that the Indianapolis Colts have had through the preseason. And that he is probably going to be one of their top 2 backs for week 1 and maybe 2. I was hoping that Wilkins would take the job as the season went on, but everything has broken his way so far in terms of preseason. It's a kid who performed really well at Ole Miss, averaging, 6.5 yards per carry last year, 5.3, 6.9. He can run, doesn't jump off the board in terms of his athleticism or stats if you look at what he did at the combine, but he's just a good running back who can actually just pound. If they give him the ball at the goal line, there is touchdown upside. I was buying into him really cheaply. His current ADP sits at 167. The running back 59 in drafts. I think that that's going to skyrocket. The drafts that I've seen him go in recently have been about the 9th through the 12th rounds is where he's going. Adrian Peterson, a comp who is going in the 9th round in terms of draft cost, not in terms of who he is as an athlete. That's not what I'm saying. But if I'm considering buying a running back in the 9th or 10th or 12th round, I'm going to buy Wilkins over Adrian Peterson just because youth, because people that are also there, and I don't think somebody's blocking Peterson, but I do think that Kelce is probably a more healthy and every down back at this point. I think Wilkins can carry the lion's share of the carries there and deal with that as well as goal line. And you also have the fact that the Colts are going to be a much higher powered offense with Andrew Luck under center than they have been previously. Now, staying on brand with my next player, 32%, Patrick Mahomes. You guys know I've been high on him all season, all off season. He is currently going at an ADP of about 128. He's got the 15th quarterback off the board. I've seen drafts where he's going higher than guys. If he's going in the quarterback 8 or quarterback 9 range, where I think he kind of slots in for me, I'm probably not drafting him. I'm looking to get him at a value, and I have been getting him as the quarterback 12 through 15 in most of the drafts that I've done. If you can get him in that range, I absolutely love it. A 12th round pick for Patrick Mahomes because I really believe that he has the upside of top 5 or top 3 by the end of the season. Okay? So if you can do that, if you can get a guy at quarterback, and quarterbacks are cheap and it's extremely deep position, but a lot of the guys that you're drafting at the QB 12 through QB 15 range don't have top 3 or top 5 upside. Patrick Mahomes does. He has an offensive around him that is ridiculous. He's got maybe the best deep threat wide receiver of all time. All apologies to Randy Moss, who is one of my all-time favorites and possibly the best deep threat of all time. But you have Tyreek Hill, who broke the record for touchdowns of over 30 yards last year with 8 of them. You have Patrick Mahomes, who has targeted him relentlessly in preseason. They still have Travis Kelce. They have Sammy Watkins on the other side, improving front. Now, no matter what you think of Sammy Watkins, he is an improvement over Albert Wilson or Conley or whoever they had running on the other side, as well as a savvy running game with Andy Reid and Hunt in the backfield. You're not going to be able to really stop this kid from picking things apart. Yes, he's going to have some bad games. He's going to throw some interceptions. But I really think he has a great chance at 25 to 30 touchdowns through the air. 30 is kind of rarefied air. I think 25 is more realistic. I also think he's going to create 3 or 4 on the ground with his legs because he can move. He's an excellent athlete, though not a running quarterback. And finishing off the video, Trey Burton at tight end. Currently an 87 ADP with as the tight end 8. People are starting to reach for this guy, and I'm probably not going to be getting any more shares of him now that he's going in the 6th round of drafts. But if you were drafting earlier in the offseason, this is why I've been doing drafts for a long time. If you have a take on a guy that you believe is the right take, you're going to get them at a value before they shoot up. Somebody like Christian McCaffrey was going at the middle to the end of the 2nd round. Now he's going at the 10th and 11th pick in most drafts that I've seen over the last 7 to 10 days. You could have gotten him at a massive value and still locked up a round 1 running back on top of that if you were drafting Christian McCaffrey a month ago. Same thing goes for Trey Burton. He was going in the 9th and 10th rounds a month and a half, 2 months ago, and now he's going in the 6th. Maybe you have a chance to draft him in the 7th. So if you have shares, congratulations. I think that this kid is going to be phenomenal this year, especially in full PPR, where he's going to line up in the slot in that new offense, in Nagy's offense. And a lot of his touchdown upside depends on how much his quarterback can blossom in year 2. But I'm a believer in Trey Burton's athletic skill set. We saw what he could do with limited time when Ertz was out in Philly for the last couple of years. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys for joining. Appreciate it. If you're still here, click that like button, click the subscribe button, and ring the bell. And if you got a couple of seconds, click one of those 2 things over here on this side of the screen. Got a suggested video for you over here. Got a subscribe button up there. That's going to do it for this time. I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you for all the support recently. Best of luck in your fantasy football drafts, and I'll catch up to you soon. Bye, guys.